Hello, New York Giants fans. Welcome back to the Everything New York Giants podcast with New York Giants Fangirl. Today, it's time to preview the Giants versus Commanders Sunday game at 1 p.m. It's week 2, and the Giants had a very ugly, very ugly, unexpected week 1. So let's see how they're going to bounce back in week 2 against the Commanders. So the game is in Washington, and I do expect there to be a lot of Giants fans there. So if you're going, please be loud. We need you. And let's go ahead and get right into it. So let's start with the injury report, because Neighbors came on the injury report yesterday with some sort of knee injury. The good news is, everyone take a deep breath. He is cleared and good to go, so no issues there. So McFadden and Malik Neighbors are all set, good to go. Thank God McFadden is back. I think we all agree that we want to see him starting opposite Bobby Okereke, not a rookie. A 6th round pick, no less. Rookie. Next up is wide receiver Darius Slayton, who is in concussion protocol. So Dable said that he is moving along nicely. I think that he will be a game time decision. It's a week, and I personally think that these concussions should be taken very seriously. For those of you who watched the Miami Buffalo game last night, saw what happened to Tua. I think it's his 3rd concussion in the last couple of years, and I just think this stuff shouldn't be messed around with. I think that they all should be wearing guardian caps, and all of this to say that I hope they don't rush Darius back. We do have Jalen Hyatt, so I just feel like it's not like we're going from him to like Richie James, you know what I mean? So we'll see what happens. Game time decision Sunday. There are 3 players who were listed as out. The first one being wide receiver Gunnar Olszewski. I don't think there's any surprise there. Dable said he was going to be out for weeks. I'm kind of surprised that he's not on IR, but I guess that's good news. Maybe he's going to be back in 3 weeks. That would be wonderful because we need him. Next up is linebacker Darius Moisseau with a knee injury. He is listed as out. So again, McFadden should be getting the start opposite Bobby O. And then lastly is cornerback Nick McCloud, who also has a knee injury. He is listed as out. So with Nick McCloud being out, this is what and those other players, I don't expect there to be any changes on the offense. The offensive line is going to look the same. Wide receivers, running backs, everyone is going to look the same. If Darius Slayton doesn't play, expect to see Jalen Hyatt in his place. So not a huge surprise there, but outside of that, I think we can expect pretty much the same for the offense. The defense, I think the only thing that's going to be different is obviously instead of Darius Moisseau, it's going to be Micah McFadden, which like I said, I think we all would prefer. And then Nick McCloud, who is getting some reps on the outside. I think what I'm most curious to see is Cordell Flott going to be on the outside, or is it going to be Adoree Jackson? Because last week we saw a mix of the 3 of them between the outside and the slot position. So obviously there's no change with Tay Banks. He is the starting outside corner, but the question is going to be, I think, between the slot and the other outside corner. So with the slot, I do think it's going to be Drew Phillips, and I think that we're going to see him probably the bulk of the time. But we did see Adoree Jackson last week in there on 3rd down. So I'm curious to see if we'll see that, or now that Nick McCloud is out, is it strictly going to be Adoree on the outside with Cordell Flott being involved in the rotation there. So keep your eyes peeled on that. I'm not exactly sure what Shane Bowen is going to do, but I do think that it's more likely that the rotation is going to be on the outside corner as opposed to in the slot. So I'm really curious to see how that goes. Something else that I think to keep your eyes peeled for on the defense is Isaiah Simmons, because he did not play at all last week, and he was quoted as saying it was shocking and he was confused, but Dable said that, and Shane Bowen both said, that this is what we want from guys. We want guys who want to play, and Isaiah Simmons is fast, and knowing that they have a good run game and that they have a quarterback who can run and they have pretty fast wide receivers, Terry McLaurin, obviously, I expect Isaiah Simmons to be more involved this week. So from a defensive standpoint, I would say look out for those couple changes, and I think that those are things that hopefully are going to spark some light into this defense and are going to change things. So while we're at it, let's just stick with the defense a little bit here, because there are some other things that I want to talk about with that. So first up being Kayvon Thibodeaux, who historically against Washington has played some of his best football for the Giants. Last year, he had the most amount of sacks and tackles that he's ever had against a team. So I expect a big game out of Kayvon. And I know that everyone is really down on this team, and I get it. I am going to give them the opportunity on Sunday to turn things around. And, you know, I've listened to my slew of Giants podcasts today, and everyone is turning the page and we are moving forward. And I think the biggest thing that I heard from every single one of them, including Carl Banks, who's been in the building, including Bob Papa, who's been in the building, is that, you know, Monday, it was very quiet. It seemed as everyone was confused as to what happened on Sunday and why it was so bad. And then when Tuesday came around, they turned the page onto Washington and the focus is there. So I think that that's going to be a benefit for this team. They only have 17 weeks. They only have a certain number of opportunities to play their best football and to do what they need to do. And, you know, someone like Kayvon Thibodeau, after watching Dexter Lawrence get re-signed after his third year, that should be something that should be running through his brain 24/7, is if I want to get re-signed earlier to an extension before my rookie deal is over, then I better get my ass in gear and I better play well. And there is no better week for him to do that than this week against Washington. So I want to see a big game out of Kayvon, and I think he's very capable of it. I expect every single person on this team to take a gigantic leap forward from what happened last weekend. And we're moving on. It's a new week, it's a new game, it's a new team. This is a team that the Giants have beat over and over again. Since Daniel Jones has been the quarterback, he has 5-1-1 against Washington, and 3 of those games he has won in Washington. And like Kayvon, he has played some of his best football. So we're going to talk about the offense in a second. I want to stick more with the defense here, because Brian Robinson Jr., their running back, yes, I was going to say Brian Thomas, who is the LSU wide receiver, not the same. Brian Robinson is a really good running back. And something else that I think has been really interesting about this team is we have not seen a lot of Austin Eckler. And let's hope it stays that way. Dan Quinn, on the other hand, the head coach of the Commanders, who we all know as the Cowboys defensive coordinator, is 6-0 against the Giants. So he's going to do what he can to whip up on this team. And, you know, that is going to include probably getting Austin Eckler in the mix a little bit more. It's going to include taking advantage of Terry McLaurin, knowing that, you know, if Adoree or Cordell Flott is on him. Do you feel amazing about that? I don't really, but hopefully Tay Banks is going to be the matchup there, which it should be. But so I think these are the things that, you know, we have to keep in mind and think about. And it's a good opportunity, like I said, for this team to really pick it up. Dexter Lawrence is going to be going against a not very good offensive line. We all know who their offensive line coach is, and their offensive line is nowhere near as good as the Vikings. The Vikings have 2 really good tackles on their side, and Kayvon and Burns are not going against the tackles that they went against last week. So between the 2 of them, Dexter, Nacho, Elijah Chapman, Jordan Riley, TJ Davidson, whoever is in the mix, I expect them to make plays. Now, I think the biggest issue for this team is going to be the fact that Jaden Daniels is fast and decisive. So, and knowing that he has an offensive line, which he probably doesn't really trust yet because they have not been very good, he's going to be on the move. So I expect this front 4 to get there, to get pressure on Jaden. And it's not going to be easy, but they are very capable of it. They are a talented front line. Obviously, Nacho is the weakest link out of the 4 of them, but he's pretty good against the run. So I expect to see big moves from the defense this week. I expect to actually see a pass rush, Kayvon and Burns. And I think that this is the week to do it. It's the week to instill their confidence back. This is a beatable team. So I think those are probably the things from a defensive standpoint that I'm going to be the most focused on. I'm curious to see the matchups, but something else that I wanted to point out, the Buccaneers absolutely whipped on the Commanders, okay? And they put up 37 points. Now, Baker Mayfield has looked quite good. He's got Mike Evans. The Bucs are very different than the Giants are. I understand that. However, the fact that they were able to whip up on them makes me feel like this team, the talent that the Giants have, they just have to wake up and and act like they actually prepared for this all week. So I expect them to do that. So that's where I'm going to leave it with the defense. I expect them to take that big step forward. Next up, let's talk about the offense. So like I said, Daniel Jones, this is a perfect opportunity for him to settle down in the pocket, to trust his offensive line and trust the things that he is seeing and be able to make mistakes. Be able to fix mistakes and play well. I was just looking at something because I didn't realize that Jaden Daniels fumbled 3 times last week. So Kayvon and Burns, I'm looking at you to be all over that. So with the offense, again, I know that everyone's down on Daniel Jones. I am down on him too, but he's played his best game against Washington historically, and now would be the time for him to settle down and wake up. And, I don't really know if I'm going to make any predictions here, but I'm just going to say that I really hope for everyone's sake that last week was a blur, a mistake never to be seen from again from every single one of these players, and that this week they're going to be better. The things that I want to see from the offense outside of every single person playing significantly better than they did last week is we have to see an improvement on run blocking. The biggest thing that I think could help improve Daniel Jones's confidence is to feel like they can run the ball successfully. Because if they can do that, I think it's going to feel for Daniel like he's getting some more help around him, and it's not only on him to make the perfect throw every time to move the ball. So I expect some better run blocking. John Runyon did not play a lot this offseason. Talked about this last week. We all know this. He's dealing with the injuries, and he's back and he's healthy, and I expect the run blocking to be significantly improved from him, from JMS, and from Greg Van Moren. The 3 interior guys have to step it up this week. They're not going against the best defensive line in the game. What's his name? Montez Sweat and Chase Young are no longer on the team. Don't get me wrong, they have some good defensive players. Bobby Wagner is one of the best. So when it comes to run blocking and being able to run the ball, Bobby Wagner is likely going to try and be all over us. But I really need this offensive line to step up. And I'm excited because I hope that we're going to see some different play calling from Thibs. And that includes in the run game outside of the passing game. So I want to see a little more of Tyrone Tracy. I want to see him get more involved. I'm sure that he was on a pitch count last week. Literally everything went wrong last week. So I want to see some of these younger guys get involved. What Dable was asked about, how do you get neighbors more involved? And he said, throw him the ball. So Jones, throw him the ball. So I hope that Jones feels a little bit more comfortable. He throws the ball down the field. I mean, last time we saw it once last week. I want to see a minimum of 3 times. And I know that number is extremely low and you guys are going to be like 3 really, but do you feel any more confident that they're going to throw it successfully 5 or more times? Because after last week, I certainly don't. So, I've learned to rein it in a little bit after what I saw last week. So those are the things that I want to see. I want to see improved run blocking, a better run game, and obviously wide receivers. They had really good separation last week. They were in the top 5 wide receivers getting separation, and Jones just couldn't pull the trigger. So he needs to do that this week, especially knowing that they're not going against the Stephon Gilmores of the world. I expect the receivers to continue to get separation. We know that Neighbors can do it. We know Wandale is his go-to guy. They're going to have to get the play action involved, and my God, they have to run some successful screens and not do what they did last week. So I just want to see everyone learn from their mistakes, and it sounds so simple, but when we saw what we saw last week, it's just, I'm not asking for this team to go in there and blow them out 50-0 and, have pick sixes and force fumbles and, Jones to have 3 touchdowns. Like, that would all be amazing. But after last week, I really don't feel like they're anywhere remotely close to that. So here's what I will say. I think that the Giants can win this game. They are capable of winning it. They have the talent. I still believe in Daniel Jones and Brian Dable as a coach. I have my concerns, but I believe that he is a good coach. He's made a lot of mistakes and some very curious decisions. And I just hope that whatever the reason for the decisions were last week, that he realizes that he has to go back to the drawing board and do what they had success with over the summer. And that's another thing that I would like to see this week. So I have low expectations, but I do just feel like they're capable of winning. We are not playing the Cowboys. I understand that Dan Quinn is the head coach there, and we're probably going to see some familiar things, but he is the head coach. They do not have Micah Parsons. He is not on this team. They do not have the defense that the Giants have historically gone against with Dan Quinn and the Cowboys every single time when he has gone 6-0 against us. So they are capable of winning, and I really want to see them do it. So this is going to be my prediction. I'm still an optimist, guys. I think they're going to win 20-17. I think it's going to be close. I think they only score 2 touchdowns. I hope that they are both offensively. I'd like to see a rushing touchdown from Devin Singletary and a passing touchdown to Neighbors from Jones. I would really like to see that. And then, I'd like to see the defense get some turnovers. But until I see the offense move the ball down the field successfully and score points, I just don't feel like they're capable of scoring that many touchdowns. So I'm going to go with 2 touchdowns, 2 field goals. You guys might think I'm insane. I hope some of you agree with me. I know there's some of you out there who are still a little bit optimistic on this team and don't think we're going to go 0-17. So what I have to say is, since Dable has been the coach here, he has not gone 0-2 in the last 2 years. So stats are sometimes important. Just asked Aaron Boone. So that's where I'm at. And I'm going to remain hopeful. And, we'll see how things go on Sunday at 4 p.m. And then in the next podcast episode, then it could be a good conversation or a not so good conversation. But until then, I'm going to remain optimistic. We're not missing any major starters this week, and it's a game that this team is capable of winning, and they're capable of beating the Commanders. So go out there, prove to all these Giants fans why they should continue to root for you. There are a lot of us who believe in you and know that you're capable of doing it. So get out there and do it. Fix the mistakes. Some of them were god-awful and stupid. Fix them. Beat the Commanders, bring home a win, and instill some faith in this Giants fan base, because we all could use it. Okay? Make sure you follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at New York Giants Fangirl. I go on some pretty fun rants on TikTok if you're on there. Most recently, I posted 2 videos on why I think Dable is actually trying to get himself fired. I'm not convinced that he is, but some of his decision-making, my God. So if you're looking for a laugh, you can go check those out. And then please subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast. I'm going to remain optimistic. If the Giants go 0-2, then, we're going to take it in a different direction here. We're still going to talk about the Giants, but we're also going to talk about college football and some quarterbacks. So in the meantime, let's cheer on our team. Go Giants. Let's hope for a win, and let's try and have some fun on Sunday. Go Giants. Thanks, guys, for listening.